Hello, everyone. I'm Jason Silverman, the director of the Cinematheque here at the Center for Contemporary Arts. Yes, that's what CCA stands for. That question came up in our chat. We're incredibly honored to be a part of this evening, showing you for the first time scenes from an upcoming opera, This Little Light of Mine. This program is called Is This America? It is presented in conjunction with the incredible Santa Fe Opera, which is developing this as as part of their Voices for All program. I want to say that the opera is offering this to us with incredible amounts of generosity. And it occurs to me, as all of our presenting organizations are closed and singers and composers and technical staff are out of work, how important it is that we support the performing arts, the visual arts, cultural organizations. Please remember to do that. If you'd like to support the CCA, I'm going to post this offer here. You can click on that. It'll open in a new window. I am going to also post the donate button for the Santa Fe Opera. If you're not here in Santa Fe, please support your local cultural organizations. We are going to need them when we come back from this pandemic more than ever. So thank you for being here tonight. We're going to jump right in, and I am going to introduce our first of our panelists. We are going to do this in 2 rounds. We're going to talk first with Latoya Ratliff and Diana Solomon Glover, and then we're going to bring on another group of people to discuss this opera. Diana Solomon Glover is the librettist for this piece. And she's been seen on the operatic stage in a variety of settings for years, and she's long served humanitarian and social efforts. She may be best known for her role of Winnie Mandela in the work No Easy Walk to Freedom, which was the premiere of, which was composed by Chandler Carter, who we'll see later. And Latoya, born in Mississippi, has been inspired by the stories of her great aunt, Fannie Lou Hamer, since a child, and she has followed in her footsteps, doing charitable and activist work, including work on voter registration and education, which of course we need now more than ever. and in a variety of ways serving her community. So we're very grateful to have you both here. Oh, and let me just tell you, we're going to have 2 short conversations, and then we're going to show you the work, which will be about 38 minutes long. So please welcome LaToya and Diana.
Thank you, Jason. We are so honored to be here with you tonight, and we are very grateful to the Santa Fe Opera and Opera for All Voices for the opportunity to celebrate a great American hero, Fannie Lou Hamer, a person many Americans may not know anything about, but that changes tonight. And we are even doubly inspired to have her direct descendant, LaToya Rotleaf, here to talk to us about her. So we will get to know Fannie Lou Hamer even more intimately through her grandniece's experience of her legacy. If you have ever heard or uttered the phrase, "I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired," you know Fannie Lou Hamer. She was born in 1917 in Mississippi in the Delta, the youngest of 20 children, into a family of sharecroppers. Now, sharecropping was simply reconstituted slavery. It was a system of farming that held the subjugated worker in perpetual debt to the landowner, never making enough money to feed or clothe or educate themselves. And in fact, children of sharecroppers only attended about 4 months of schooling because they were required to work in the fields the rest of the year. And even then, there was never enough. And so Fannie Lou was forced to quit school at a very early age so that she could work even more to help feed her family. And the years went by that way, from childhood into adulthood, eking out a crushing existence. But she had a spark that could not be extinguished. Fannie Lou Hamer was a born leader, and even the landowner took advantage of her abilities, calling on her to manage his workers and keep his books. And she did that for 18 years, until the day that she was invited to attend a meeting about voter registration. Up to then, she didn't even know that she had a right to vote. Can you imagine? From that moment, she dedicated herself to securing first-class citizenship for every Black Mississippian. She put her body in harm's way to secure that right. She was threatened and shot at and run out of town. And when that didn't stop her, she was jailed and beaten so badly that she never recovered from it. But she remained undeterred. And in fact, that mistreatment, that beating, became her very credentials. It uniquely qualified her to speak on behalf of the oppressed and disenfranchised. She was what you would call a servant leader, one who suffers the injustice she is fighting to overthrow. In August 1964, she led an integrated delegation called the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party to the Democratic National Convention in Atlantic City. And they demanded that their party be seated instead of the lily white delegation that Mississippi routinely sent. They demonstrated day and night right outside the convention hall until the Credentials Committee had no choice but to allow them to be heard. Now, there were many notables who spoke. Dr. King was one of them, but none of them carried the moral authority of this poor sharecropper, a woman who had already endured a lifetime of Mississippi's especially vicious brand of racism, segregation, poverty, and dehumanization. The Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party was not seated in 1964, but Mrs. Hamer's testimony sent shockwaves into every American living room that had a television. Her testimony helped pass the Voting Rights Act, which outlawed the discriminatory voting practices that had been adopted in many Southern states after the Civil War, practices that kept Black folks from the polls. And here we are today, almost 60 years later, still fighting voter suppression. LaToya, what do you think your grand aunt would have to say about where we are now?
Well, I think with so many decades later, she would be shocked that we're still dealing with very similar issues throughout this country. Even someone as a resident in Florida, recognizing that a few years ago, we passed an act to allow individuals to be able to vote. And then, of course, this year it was struck down again. So I think she would be shocked by the lack of progress that it's being made. But I think there's something in this particular situation this year that she would be inspired by. More and more, you're seeing people of all ages. You're seeing individuals that have never voted before actually getting out to the poll. And you're seeing people use their voice. And if you know about Fannie Lou Hamer, if you continue to learn about her, you will know that she was never a person that was going to be silenced. She was never someone that was going to be stopped, and she would never allow anyone to stop others from being able to use their voice as well. So I think even in the midst of everything that's transpiring, although there are some things that we still have to improve upon, I think she would be impressed by the idea that so many people are using their voices, so many people are voting, and so many individuals that never had the opportunity to vote or to actually run to be a part of their community are doing so.
It's that, yeah, that makes me think also, one of the things that does inspire me about this time is that for the first time in my way of thinking in American history, we have so many young people, particularly, who know exactly what's happening, and they know how to articulate it in a way that their peers and the old folks, the old heads, understand what is going on. And never before have we had such people who are able to use media platforms, access to media, and proximity to the levers of power that perhaps this is a time in American democracy where we can finally thrust this country toward living out its ideals or living up to its ideals.
Absolutely. I think there's several individuals that I follow on social media, and they're activists. And there's a young woman who's 13. And every weekend she's out trying to figure out how to register people to vote. She can't even register to vote, but she's out in the communities every weekend speaking about voter registration, collecting food for the hungry. She's there and she just wants to help and she wants to use her voice. So I agree with everything you're saying, that this is a time where if you want to help, if you want to say, I want better for myself and I want better for my community, then you have the opportunity to do so. And many people are taking that opportunity and then sharing information and educating others. So it's one of those things where it's like reach one, teach one. It's not only about finding a voice for yourself, but it's about bringing others on along the way.
When you talk about this 13-year-old who is out there who isn't herself able to vote, but out registering voters, it puts me in the mind of June Johnson, who was one of the people who was with Fannie Lou Hamer on the day they were arrested, who was also beaten, who was a 15-year-old. Mm-hmm. And she was so articulate and so outspoken that people were surprised that she was 15. And there was a joke that went around that said June was so argumentative, she would argue with a stop sign. So it's very wonderful to hear you talk about this 13-year-old that, it's the parallel of what was happening in 1964, in the 1960s. And I want to ask you, I think we could say that last May, you stepped right into your grand aunt's shoes. You put your body on the line. Would you talk to us about that?
Well, as everyone recognized and saw across the country, this past May, about 7 months ago, we saw what was happening from our homes, because we were all homes, and we all saw the video of George Floyd, and unfortunately saw the video of the police officer actually kneeling on his neck for that very, very long period of time. And as for many people, as for me, it sent this just wave of emotion, frustration, sadness and helplessness. And as we saw so many people get out into their communities and say that I can't see anything like this happening anymore. And this isn't something that we should ever allow to happen. So because of that, I spent several weekends. As my first weekend, I actually went to a demonstration down in Miami on a Saturday. And it was just this amazing event. Just so many people, thousands of people of all different races and background and ages. And it was one of the most comforting experiences because it let me know that, as a Black woman, I wasn't alone in this country. And as a sister I have my brothers that are Black, my nephews and my uncles, and it let me know that there are people that care for them. I decided to actually go to Fort Lauderdale the following day. And it was the same type of environment, the same type of community. But unfortunately, as I was leaving that particular event, there was an incident where a police officer actually shot me in the face as I was leaving. And it was unfortunately, a traumatic event. And it's something that I'm still kind of working through to this day. But one of the things that I like to focus on about it is that at the instance of me being shot, there were several individuals that rushed to me. And without any regards for their safety, without, worrying about what could potentially happen, they picked me up, they grabbed me, and they took me to the hospital. And that is what I want to focus on, because the individuals that came to my safety were the same individuals that I was there, walking for and demonstrating for. And they're my heroes. And still to this day, I'm reminded that we were out there to advocate for a safe environment for everyone, a safe environment for Black women, for Black men, specifically for Black men. And those were the individuals that came to make sure that I was okay. So as you can see, is that we have a little bit of way to go, but in those moments where you are struggling, as I was, we saw that I was able to witness the community.
Wonderful. You also were able to had the opportunity to speak to legislators.
Yes, I spoke in front of Congress at the end of June, and it was an amazing experience simply because I felt kind of the spirit of my grandaunt with me throughout that time, because she had the most powerful and commanding voice, and she had a presence to where you had to stop and you had to listen to her. You had no choice, because what she was saying was so powerful and amazing. And what she was saying was so passionate and true, is that you felt the emotion that came from her. So throughout that experience, I just kept thinking about, I'm able here to use my voice because of what she did to ensure that someone like me could use my voice. So it was just an honor. And I still hope that I was able to represent her well. And I always hope that I was able to show anyone that is advocating for individuals, for voting rights, for citizens, just basic citizen rights, that anyone is able to.
Okay, I'm not sure what happened there, but it was...
Latoya came back as Chan.
So yes, this is how it works in cyberspace. Chandler, let me introduce you while we're waiting for Beth, and I just have to say thank you to Latoya, wherever you are. It was incredibly powerful to have you here with us, and I hope you're listening to us in the audience now. Chandler Carter is the composer of this work. He has created work focused on historical stories that explore the boundaries of race and power. He's composed more than 50 songs, choral songs, chamber and orchestral pieces, and they've been performed internationally. We're very grateful to have you here. And Beth Greenberg, here on the bottom right, has been spent the last quarter century producing, directing, and managing live, large-scale concert and theatrical productions, indoors, outdoors, everywhere, here and there. We're very grateful to have you. It's an honor to have all three of you together to talk about this work. And Beth was the stage director, just to clarify, Chan, the composer, and Diana, the librettist. So I'm going to get out of the way and let you guys talk about how this work came about. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Well, we have reached the age when we're measuring things by centuries.
Yes, well, speaking of which, I measure them by millennia, and Diana Solomon Glover and I have been close friends since the last millennia, as I like to tell my son. But I want to thank Diana and LaToya. It's an honor to be with you on the same conversation. And thank you, Diana, for your beautiful introduction to the life of Fannie Lou Hamer. Fannie Lou Hamer is, I first heard her voice and learned of her probably 30 years ago on the documentary series Eyes on the Prize. And her story was an episode. And it just, as me and anyone else who really heard her speak at the 1964 convention, are grabbed by the authenticity of her voice and her story. I could never understand her experience, but I recognized her as a person. I knew women of color like her who worked their fingers to the bone for their families and their communities. And even for me, I had teachers that I recognized in her. So when I heard her, for me, the phrase that grabbed me, and it's the name of this show, is this America? And when she asked that question, is this America? I thought to myself, that's kind of the flip side of Dr. King's I Have a Dream. Dr. King imagined what America could be, but Fannie Lou Hamer had to remind us what America was, and still remains to some degree. It's both these sides we have to keep in mind: the possibility of a better future and a better life now, but also the reality of life now. And so I wanted to tell her story. And it stayed in my mind for years, decades, really, until the Opera for All Voices commissioning program came to my attention. This is sponsored by Santa Fe Opera and 7 other companies that are in a consortium. And they're aspiring to, Opera for All Voices aspires to tell stories that you don't encounter on the operatic stage, or frankly encounter enough anywhere. Tell their stories, tell voices, people who you don't usually see on an operatic stage. And when I was reading it, Fannie Lou Hamer, who had been in the back of my mind as a possibility for a project, immediately leapt to the fore. And then immediately after I thought of Fannie Lou Hamer as a subject for this opera, Diana Solomon Glover, my old friend, she was the next person. She would be the person I could work with that could find the words to tell her story. So, and then I immediately sent an email to Diana, and I think within seconds I got a exclamatory affirmative response. And then within minutes, the project had captured both of our imaginations, and we were off and running, at least. And that was only about 3 years ago, and it's of course come to fruition. It's a great honor to really spend this amount of time delving into Fannie Lou Hamer and telling her story, and also working with my friend to realize it.
Yeah. A lot of operas are love stories, and I like to think of this as Mrs. Hamer's love affair with democracy and freedom, and the tremendous strength that she had to inspire other people to work to get out the vote. And Santa Fe, we're so grateful for Santa Fe, because part of the project is to be involved with the national campaign about getting out the vote right now in the midst of this election where the country is so polarized. And I had gotten involved with this project last year just to direct a reading of just a text that Diana wrote. And then we all went on our other ways, and the pandemic hit, and I was thinking about her voice this summer, the beginning of the summer, and it occurred to me that even despite the pandemic, we have to find some way to get her voice out there again and get it out in song, which is what we as musical theater artists do. And so I talked to the people at Santa Fe, Andrea Feinberg, who is the director of community engagement, and proposed that we do part of the big opera, This Little Light of Mine, and present it in a pandemically safe way, which we think is doing things outdoors and doing them distance, and also asking the singers to wear masks while they sing. So that's a pretty big ask for a singer to perform while masked, but our heroic, fearless singers did it. And you'll see the results tonight. We have masks designed by Brooke Stanton in Boston, who just ran with the challenge of finding a way to have singers feel comfortable singing in a performance mask where they can do their jobs. So that's one of the things that we're presenting tonight. The other thing is I looked for a platform in New York City where we could get a definite permit, which is not easy to do. And I called up an old friend, Carlina Salguero of Portside, New York, and she has a fantastic historic oil tanker in Red Hook, Brooklyn. And I said, let's do the project, get Fannie Lou Hamer's voice out there, and she was all for it. And so that's what we'll present to you tonight, the film of what we performed on October 10th, twice in one afternoon in the harbor, with traffic, ferries, helicopters, boaters, motors, anything you could imagine that we threw at the singers. So they had a couple of challenges to deal with, but they dealt with them heroically, as you'll see. And what an honor to be able to present Fannie Lou Hamer's words to you once again, a voice that just can't be stilled, and we need her more than ever right now.
Beth, I have to thank you very much for the idea you had to not just perform excerpts, but to reframe the story to make it so pertinent to what is going on today.
Thank you.
I wanted to say something. Yeah, Beth and Diana really took the opera that Diana and I wrote is a longer. It's an hour and 15 minutes. And it's called This Little Light of Mine, and it focuses on the story of Fannie Lou Hamer and involves her family. But we weren't able to realize that ambitious for production under these circumstances. But Beth's genius was to recognize that there was an opportunity to tell a story, a shorter version, a more practical version, but even under these circumstances of the pandemic. And we chose 30 minutes that could work, but also the dialogue you have here is an entirely reconfigured, reimagined, and it's set now, as you will find out. So the music is from the original opera, but the dialogue, you hear Diana's dialogue, and she tells not a profoundly different, but it is a different story. It's with a different perspective, and that was really a lot of work and took a lot of real imagination. I think it's been a wonderful success.
Well, thanks to both of you, Chen and Diana, for creating this work. I see Jason back, so we're probably.
Diana, Diana, I would love you to set us up to take us in. I just want to say another congratulations to the Santa Fe Opera, to the Opera for All Voices program, to Andrea Fellows-Feinberg, who has ushered this, and her amazing team, and the whole team at Santa Fe Opera. Santa Fe Opera and CCA have been working together for years and years and years, and they really operate from a place of great commitment and generosity. So thanks again. Diana, do you want to say the last? And we're going to watch the piece, which is 38 minutes long, which you're going to love, and then we're going to have these three come back to take a bow. A virtual bow. So stick around for that. And Diana, would you like to have the
Sure. So what you're about to see is a story within a story. It starts with the Black Lives Matter protests, where we find ourselves today. And we eventually get to a saying that is just forever linked to Fannie Lou Hamer. And then we tell our story.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Natasha Campbell, and I greet you on behalf of the Board of Trustees of Portside, New York. We are thankful for your presence here this evening and for your current and your future support of Portside. Portside is honored to host this stellar presentation about an amazing woman. Fannie Lou Hamer will forever be recognized for her work in the civil rights movement of the 1960s. I was especially excited about this event because the words of Fannie Lou Hamer still ring true today. People of color are still sick and tired of being sick and tired. Given the current climate that we're living through, it's necessary to remind us of the sacrifices that were made so that all of us can be here this afternoon together. Again, Portside thanks you for your presence, and we thank the Santa Fe Opera for making this afternoon possible. We hope that you will enjoy the show and that you leave here today inspired to be a part of the movement for equity for everyone. Thank you.
No justice? No peace. No justice? No peace.
What? You don't know? What?
What's his name?
George Floyd.
George Floyd.
Is this really
Brianna.
going to make a difference? What are you saying? I'm saying, I don't know. Look, get rid of slavery. They answer with Jim Crow. Try to move into a better neighborhood. Redlining. Bust your ass to vote. Gerrymandering. Oh, education. Starving kids can't learn. Then there's the prison pipeline, which strips you of all of it, and now black and brown dying 3 times the rate of whites from a pandemic. Racist healthcare system. 400 years of trying to get this nation to care about us. They just find new ways to kill us.
This is how we stop it.
Tell me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks
Tell
like.
me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like. We turn the tables upside down.
Change begins in the streets, but to be effective, it must end
At the ballot box. At the ballot box.
But our votes didn't count. Electoral college, white last.
You know what ain't count? The 36% of black voters who stayed home. Could it be the election was decided by the people who didn't vote?
It feels hopeless. I can see why people would say,
I know you didn't just fix your mouth.
my generation is sick of begging them to see us. We're tired of failed attempts.
Sick and tired of being sick and tired. Sick and tired of being sick and tired.
They quoting Fannie Lou Hamer.
Who?
Fannie Lou Hamer. Before Breonna Taylor, before Sandra Bland. You gonna throw in the towel after a couple marches? She gave her whole life to this struggle.
Listen, we vote, we don't vote. They still kill us.
Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter.
You do know this is a nation of laws, don't you? Unless a thing is protected in the law, it's just a cute idea. Y'all think impatience is something new. 60 years ago, Fannie Lou Hamer felt the same way. Like she didn't matter and things were never gonna change. Especially in Mississippi. She was born a sharecropper. Slavery by a different name. Hell, slavery was still on the books in Mississippi until the year 2013. Mississippi did everything it could to keep black people from the power of the vote. Everything. Fannie Lou Hamer was Black Lives Matter. You need to know her story. How she first got involved in the civil rights movement, 1962.
She limping?
Polio, or a broken leg that didn't get set right when she was a child.
No medical care.
Uh-huh. Quit school to feed the family. Couldn't have children. They sterilized her without her consent.
Mississippi appendectomy.
Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee.
From the what?
From SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. You know, civil rights workers.
I've come to invite you to a meeting tonight at the church to learn how to register to vote.
They taught us that mess in school, and it's turned me off.
But Mrs. Hamer, don't you want Negroes to be treated as first-class citizens?
First-class citizens, civil rights. Miss, the only rights them white folks is gonna give us is the right to die in they field picking cotton.
All I ask, Mrs. Hamer, is that you come to the meeting. Reverend James Bevel will be speaking tonight. He might change your mind.
Chapter 12, verse 54 says, recognize the signs of the times. If you see clouds forming in the sky, you know. Matthew chapter 16, verse 3 says, and in the morning it will be foul weather today.
Foul weather.
For the sky is red lowering.
The sky is red.
Oh, ye hypocrites!
Hypocrites!
Ye can discern the face of the sky, but can ye not discern the signs of the times?
The signs of the times.
Rain is coming.
That's right, the rain is coming, and when the wind blows from the south,
It's gonna be hot.
that's right, you can interpret the weather by what you see and feel.
What you see and feel.
You know what the weather will be tomorrow by the sky and the air today. Then hypocrites, how can you see with your own eyes the black men and women who have put their lives on the line for your rights and not know a storm is brewing?
Storm is brewing.
Hypocrites, how can you feel the dissatisfaction in your soul and not know a heart with a stirring? Hypocrites, if you can see and feel these things, how can you not know the change is coming?
Change is coming.
Are you not the storm that will wash away this misery and degradation? Are you not the hot wind that will rise up against injustice and vanquish those who oppress you?
We are the wind.
You are the storm.
We are the storm.
You're the hot wind.
We are the hot wind.
Who will change Mississippi?
We will change Mississippi.
You are the change.
We are the change.
And how will you change Mississippi?
With our vote.
With your what?
With our vote.
How will you make life better in Mississippi?
With our vote.
With your what?
With our vote.
Who will be a rainmaker? Who will be a rainmaker? Who will go down to the courthouse and make it free? Who will go register to vote? Who will go register? I am the change. Send me. Who will go? Send me. Send me. Oh, had been leading the plantation workers and organizing the boss's books since she was a child. So it was natural that once she committed herself to civil rights, she was leading and organizing that. She took a busload to Indianola to register to vote. She had a way that made others feel brave.
Mrs. Hamer, are you sure about this? Maybe we ought to pray on it some more.
You can pray until you faint, but unless you get up and try to do something, God is not going to put it in your lap. Now let's go get registered.
Amen, Mrs. Hamer. Let's go get registered.
Word had got out that this busload of Negroes from Ruleville, Mississippi were trying to reddish. That's how they called it, at the county courthouse in Indianola. They were met by gun-toting white men looking for trouble, and some women. Nothing scarier than a bunch of God-fearing white ladies. Made them into the courthouse 2 by 2. What y'all want?
We are here to register.
Huh, that's so. Well, you know, you have to pass a literacy test first. This here Section 16 of the Constitution of the State of Mississippi. Read it aloud.
Ex post facto laws, or laws impairing the obligation of contracts, shall not be passed.
Now, what does that mean?
Ma'am, I know as much about ex post facto laws as a horse knows about Christmas Day.
Then you fail the literacy test. Next. I said, get out of my courthouse, you filthy nigger, or I will have the police drag you out. 2 by 2, they all went through the same thing, and 2 by 2, they failed. When they got back on the bus to head back to Ruleville, they were surrounded by city police and state highway patrolmen.
There's more and more rednecks gathering out there. Oh, they all got guns and dogs. Oh, here comes the sheriff. They gonna put us all in jail. I want to go home to my family.
You, driver, get off the bus.
Oh, Lord, what they gonna do to us?
This little light of mine.
Her voice. It's like a cool
I'm
drink.
gonna let it shine.
And you can't kill the soul's thirst for freedom.
This little light of mine.
Somehow, Fannie Lou's voice threaded the heavens
I'm gonna let it shine.
to rain down the Holy of Holies.
This little light of mine.
Everybody on that bus and the
I'm gonna
police
let it shine.
was washed in it.
Shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, Lord, I'm gonna let it shine.
Let it shine.
Everywhere I go, Lord, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, Lord, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine. Oh, shine, 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 shine. I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, shine, 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 shine. I'm gonna let it shine. Shine, 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 shine. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine. All in the jailhouse, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, all in the jailhouse, I'm gonna it shine.
A here bus sought you for driving a vehicle the wrong color. The fine is $100 to be paid now.
But sir, I don't have $100.
Then I'll have to place you under arrest.
If they arrest you, who will drive us back home? You go tell them you'll have to arrest us all.
Have to arrest us all. There ain't room in the jail for all 18 of you. How much you think you got?
Sir, I don't know.
$50. Go to that bus and you better bring me back $30.
Between all of us, we can for sure come up with $30. Here's $3.
I got $1.
I got 50 cents.
Here's another quarter.
I got $5.
$5.
What you doing with $5? Paying the police to keep us out of jail.
$30. That'll do it.
And I'd better not see you on that yellow bus again in Indianola.
They'll see us again, all right. We'll keep coming back until we get what we came for. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me wrong. Turn me wrong, won't let him turn me wrong. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me wrong. Keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom land. Ain't gonna let no citation turn me wrong. Turn me wrong, won't let it turn me wrong. Ain't gonna let no citation turn me wrong. Keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom land. Ain't gonna let no jailhouse turn me wrong. Turn me wrong, won't let it turn me wrong. Ain't gonna let no jailhouse turn me wrong. Keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom land. Ain't gonna let no county clerk turn me wrong. Turn me wrong, turn me wrong. Ain't gonna let no county clerk turn me wrong. Keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom land. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me wrong. Turn me wrong, let it turn me wrong. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me wrong. Keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom land. We're coming back all right. We don't scare that easy. I ain't scared of no highway patrolman. I ain't scared of no town police. I ain't scared of no county sheriff. Ain't scared of no county clerk. Ain't scared on the literacy test, on the highway patrol, on the town police, on the county clerk, on the county sheriff, on the literacy test. I know highway patrolman. I ain't scared of no town police. I ain't scared of no county sheriff. Ain't scared of no county clerk.
After they paid the fine, they continued on to Rouville, where Fannie Lou had worked for 18 years. She was met there by her children, who told her that the plantation owner was angry because she had gone down to try to register. He said, "If you don't go down and withdraw your registration, you will have to leave. Then, if you go down and withdraw, you still might have to go, because we are not ready for that here in Mississippi."
I didn't try to register for you. I tried to register for myself.
She had to leave that same night. A lot of the muscle of the civil rights movement came from the young people like June Johnson.
Nobody at the workshop believed me when I told him I was only 15. When I started helping Negroes register to vote, Mama and Daddy said,
"Girl, you're too young to be doing all this."
They were scared. The Mississippi Delta is the most dangerous place in the world to be a Negro. But when they saw the Student
Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, we call it SNCC for short.
But when they saw what SNCC was doing, they changed their tune. And Mrs. Fannie Lou Hamer, that woman inspires us all. Her talking and singing about the struggles for our rights makes me want to stand up and sing too. And she ain't scared of nothing and nobody. Her bravery makes us brave. We've come from Charleston, South Carolina. I've never been so far away from home. And I've never seen Negroes so unafraid and ready. It's gonna happen. Black folks lining up to vote in Greenwood, in Rouville, all over Mississippi. And I can't wait until the day I can stand with them. And when I do, and when I vote, things will change. Things gonna change. Things gonna change. No scraps from white folks' tables. No sitting at the back of the bus. No more working for slave wages and poor schools that are just for us.
Mama and Daddy will eat at any restaurant they choose. Hospitals will treat us all like human beings.
White folks cry. I say you better get ready. They're still for a better day. Things gonna change. 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 Things gonna change.
People know I'm stubborn.
June, you'd argue with a stop sign.
I would if it said to stop fighting for my rights. Minds have to be turned, white and colored, to a new way of thinking.
I will stand with those who make it happen.
Fannie Lou kept on feeling around for a soft place in the hard heart of Mississippi. In 1964, she led a group of blacks and whites to challenge the lily white delegation that was always sent to the Democratic National Convention. They had to live on bologna sandwiches they brought from home. But they sang and preached and marched and protested round the clock, day and night, on the Atlantic City Boardwalk, right outside the convention. Finally, the Credentials Committee had to let him speak. And Fannie Lou's testimony? Imagine, this poor black sharecropper made it all the way from the lowest place in the United States into every living room that had a TV. What she said rocked the nation.
Mr. Chairman, and to the Credentials Committee, my name is Mrs. Fannie Lou Hamer, and I live at 626 East Lafayette Street, Ruleville, Mississippi, Sunflower County. June the 9th, 1963, I had attended a voter registration workshop, was returning back to Mississippi. 10 of us was traveling by the Continental Trailway bus. When we got to Winona, Mississippi, 4 of the people got off to use the washroom. During this time, I was on the bus. But when I looked through the window and saw they had rushed out, one of the ladies said it was a state highway patrolman and the chief of police ordered us out. I stepped off of the bus to see what was happening, and somebody screamed from the car, "Get that one there!" When I went to get in the car, when the man told me I was under arrest, he kicked me. I was carried to the county jail and was placed in the cell. And it wasn't too long before 3 white men came to my cell. One of these men was a state highway patrolman, and he said, "We are going to make you wish you was dead." All of this on account of we want to register to become first-class citizens. And if the Freedom Democratic Party is not seated now, I question America. Is this America, the land of the free and the home of the brave, where we have to sleep with our telephones off of the hooks because our lives be threatened daily, because we want to live as decent human beings in America? Thank you.
They beat her so bad that she never fully recovered from it. But you know how they say, God doesn't call the qualified.
He qualifies the called. That beating was her legit bona fides, her credentials.
The Credentials Committee had no choice but to open their eyes to what was happening in Mississippi.
Who will protect our rights? Then our protests are just
spitting in the wind.
Yeah, change begins in the streets.
But to make a real difference, it must end
at the ballot box. I get it.
At the ballot box.
Woke up this morning with my mind set on freedom. Oh, woke up this morning with my mind set on freedom. Woke up this morning with my mind set on freedom. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Walking and talking with my mind set on freedom. Walking and talking with my mind set on freedom. Walking and talking with my mind set on freedom. believe that we will be seated at this convention because it is right. Because we are here to claim rights for all Mississippians. And I'm not just talking about desegregation and voting rights. I'm talking about changing people's lives for our children and for our children's children. Because it ain't no harm to keep your mind set on freedom. Oh, ain't no harm to keep your mind set on freedom. Ain't no harm to keep your mind set on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. The Freedom Democratic Party is the true delegation because it shows the black folks and white folks in our states want change. But I tell you, what's wrong in Mississippi isn't just a problem, it's America's problem. You see, when you tell the truth, you don't have anything to hide. They fired me from my job for just trying to vote. They threatened me for speaking out, but I'm not scared. What's the point of being scared? The only thing they can do is kill me. And it seems they've been trying to kill me. So they shout it from the hilltops. Freedom's on its way, and freedom's here to stay. Mountain on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Oh, tell it on the mountain to let my people go. Oh, tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Oh, tell it on the mountain to let my people go. Oh, tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Oh, tell it on the mountain to let my people go.
Did you turn it on? you.
Thank you.
You can't hear everyone at home across America cheering right now, but they are assuredly. So I will get out of the way here, but I'd love to hear. First of all, congratulate the Santa Fe Opera, the Opera for All Voices program, everyone who contributed to this, the performers. Thank you. What a brilliant performance. I'd love to have your thoughts as you watch that, and then we'll say goodnight.
Well, I can't. I guess you could tell, but being there out in the harbor in Red Hook, Brooklyn, you could see the wind blowing the pages. It was just an heroic effort on all the performers' parts that they could do it, and not a complaint the whole day long. And rehearsals, we weren't able to rehearse together. We rehearsed on Zoom, as people across America have been rehearsing on Zoom for the past 7 months. So everyone probably, or many people, can well imagine the difficulties there. So they got together only together in person for the first time that day, and it was a wonderful experience and an incredibly trying experience. But it was so edifying and gratifying, and I just can't express how much I appreciate, and they're all heroes. All of those performers are heroes.
Plus, they had a chance to do something that's been denied to singers. They had a chance to perform together. And as singing artists, it's just an extraordinary thing to sing once again with your colleagues. So the event provided that for them as well. And that was very important.
I would just like to say that it is essential to our democracy that stories like Mrs. Hamer's get told again and again and again in every conceivable way, every opportunity. And I just am very proud of the Santa Fe Opera and Opera for All Voices for their commitment to tell these stories that excite and reflect a new understanding of opera, a new and burgeoning opera audience.
Hear, hear.
I have posted some additional resources to learn more about Fannie Lou Hamer. Of course, performances like this are only the beginning. The conversation that happens after is essential. Spread the word. This America program content will be made available for not-profit Get Out the Vote organization uses at no charge. If you're interested, let me post the information about that into the chat as well. If you want to learn more about how to use this for your own organization, the email is now in the chat. Please spread the word, and a giant thank you to all of you for making this work, for the years spent, for the research, for the passion, the commitment, and for bringing it to us tonight. We really deeply appreciate it. Get out and vote, everybody. We'll see you in the living room soon, and be safe.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason.